The lobby of the Fleming House Hotel in Seattle didn't just welcome its guests, it impressed them. Marble floors gleamed under the glow of a chandelier so large it looked as if it had been stolen from a palace. Velvet armchairs sat in neat clusters, waiting for conversations about stock markets, art collections, and European vacations. Every detail whispered money, refinement, power. But nothing in that room demanded attention the way the piano did. A black grand piano stood at the center of the lobby, polished to a mirror shine. Its curved body reflected the chandelier's light like a captured star. Guests passed it with hushed reverence, as if it were some priceless artifact in a museum. A gold-framed sign sat on its closed lid. "Do not touch. The instrument is being prepared for this evening." It might as well have said sacred ground. No one dared get close. Men in tailored suits glanced at it as they checked their watches. Women in diamonds let their eyes linger for a moment before turning away. The piano was a symbol of culture, of exclusivity, of belonging. That was when Lily entered. She was small for 11, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look younger. The uniform she wore was too big, the fabric faded from years of use. Her bare feet made soft, slapping sounds against the marble as she walked, a sound out of place in that room of clicking heels and polished shoes. A backpack dangled from one shoulder, sagging with the weight of things that weren't books, snacks, crayons, maybe a stuffed toy she didn't want anyone to see. She looked like a trespasser in a world that wasn't meant for her. Her mother, Rose, worked upstairs, scrubbing bathrooms and making beds for strangers. Rose had told her to wait in the lobby until she was done, to stay quiet, to stay out of the way. But Lily's eyes weren't on the chandelier, or the velvet chairs, or the guests who glanced at her and then quickly away. Her eyes were locked on the piano. She moved toward it slowly, like something was pulling her closer. She didn't notice the way people stared at her, the cleaning lady's daughter wandering where she didn't belong. All she saw was the instrument, its black surface glowing under the lights, its presence both intimidating and inviting. Lily reached the bench and hesitated. Her small hand lifted, trembling just above the smooth wood of the piano's lid. The sign was clear, the message louder than the words, "Not for you." But still, she reached. Lily's hand hovered just inches above the piano when the voice cut through the lobby like a blade. "Step away." The words were sharp, carrying easily over the soft murmur of conversations and the clink of glassware. Every head turned. At the far end of the lobby stood Mr. Grayson, the hotel manager. He was tall and lean. His gray suit pressed so perfectly it looked more like armor than clothing. His hair, slicked back with precision, gleamed under the chandelier. Even the way he walked, long strides, shoulders stiff, announced that he was in charge. And now all of that authority was aimed at an 11-year-old girl in a faded uniform with bare feet. "You're not the kind of person who's allowed to touch things like that," he said, his voice echoing through the lobby. A ripple of discomfort passed through the guests. Some lowered their eyes, pretending not to watch. Others leaned forward, curiosity flickering in their expressions. The cleaning lady's daughter against the hotel's manager. It wasn't a fair fight, but it was entertainment. Lily's hand dropped. For a heartbeat, she looked as if she might run to the armchair where she was supposed to wait, run upstairs to her mother, run anywhere but here under the weight of those staring eyes. But she didn't. Instead, she slid onto the piano bench. The room froze. A woman with diamond earrings let out a quiet gasp. A man near the front desk whispered to his wife, Mr. Grayson's jaw tightened, and his polished shoes clicked against the marble as he advanced, ready to drag her away. Then Lily did the unthinkable. She lifted the lid. Her fingers, small and unpolished, found their place on the ivory keys. And before anyone could stop her, she pressed down. The sound was soft at first, just a single note ringing in the air like the first drop of rain on glass. Then another and another, until the scattered notes became something more. A melody, not trained, not flawless, but alive. The lobby fell silent. The concierge behind the front desk forgot the phone in his hand. A bellhop stopped mid-step, a suitcase dangling from his fingers. Even the chandelier seemed to hold its breath. It wasn't the kind of music the hotel usually hosted. No Chopin, no Mozart, no elegant background tune meant to blend into the chatter of expensive lives. This was raw, childlike, uneven at times, but it carried something words could never touch. It was grief. It was longing. It was the sound of someone too young to have lost so much and too brave to keep silent. Mr. Grayson stood frozen, his lips parted, as if the next command he meant to bark had been stolen from him. For the first time, he wasn't in control. And Lily, barefoot, unwanted, unseen, was. The sound filled the lobby, not polished, not perfect, but something no one expected to hear from the hands of a barefoot child. Lily leaned into the keys, her face calm, her body still, as though the music had been waiting inside her all along, and only needed this piano to escape. Every note cut through the air like truth. Guests who had come to sip wine and wait for meetings found themselves staring, transfixed. A man holding a martini lowered his glass without realizing it. A child tugged at her mother's hand, whispering, "She's just a kid." But the mother didn't answer. She was too busy listening. The melody grew, faltered, then rose again with a trembling strength. It wasn't the kind of performance people paid for. It was a confession, a voice without words. At the edge of the crowd, Mr. Grayson remained frozen in place. His face was a mask of authority, but his eyes betrayed something else. Hesitation, disbelief, the faintest flicker of shame. Then, like a storm breaking, a figure rushed into the lobby. "Lily!" Rose's voice cracked as she pushed through the guests. Her uniform was wrinkled, her hair frayed from hours of work. She looked terrified, as though she'd walked into her worst nightmare. Her daughter, in front of all these wealthy strangers, disobeying every rule that kept their fragile place in this world intact. "Lily, stop!" she pleaded, her hands trembling. "You can't—" But before she could reach her, a voice rose from the crowd. "Let her finish." It was soft, yet it carried, like the music itself had made space for it. Heads turned. An elderly man with silver hair and round glasses stood near the velvet chairs. His suit was simple, not flashy, but something in the way he held himself made people fall silent. He didn't look like a guest who had come to show off wealth. He looked like someone who had lived long enough to recognize when he was witnessing something rare. Miles Barrington. He said no more, but the weight of his words settled over the room. Rose stopped in her tracks, caught between fear and the strange, sudden authority of this stranger. Mr. Grayson pressed his lips together, but even he didn't move. So Lily kept playing. The lobby became a cathedral, the chandelier glowing like a star above her, the polished marble carrying every vibration of sound. The guests leaned in, not daring to breathe too loudly. Some lifted their phones, capturing what they knew instinctively was not just a girl breaking the rules, but a girl breaking through them. When the final note came, it didn't just fade. It lingered, like a held breath, like something sacred refusing to let go. And then, silence. The kind of silence that comes only after thunder. No one clapped. Not yet. They were too stunned, too moved, as if applauding too quickly would shatter the fragile miracle they had just witnessed. In that stillness, Lily lifted her hands from the keys and folded them in her lap. For the first time, she looked up. All around her, the world that had ignored her now stared back in awe. The silence broke all at once. A single pair of hands began to clap, slow and deliberate. Then another joined in, and another, until the lobby was filled with applause that echoed off the marble walls like a storm of sound. Rose stood frozen, tears filling her eyes. Relief mingled with fear. She had expected anger, punishment, disgrace. Instead, her daughter was receiving something she had never known before: recognition. Lily blinked, unsure of what to do. She had not played for applause. She had played because she couldn't keep the music inside her anymore. But now the world was answering back. Only Mr. Grayson did not move. His hands remained at his sides, his jaw rigid, his eyes fixed on the child who had just upended his carefully ordered lobby. For the first time in his career, authority slipped from his grasp, and he had no idea how to take it back. "Enough!" he barked suddenly, his voice cutting through the clapping. "This is not a playground." "She has no right." But before he could finish, the man with the silver hair, Miles Barrington, stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "She has every right," Miles said calmly. "More than anyone in this room." The applause swelled again, this time sharper, as if in defiance of Grayson himself. The manager's face flushed, his confidence cracking under the weight of so many watching eyes. Within the hour, the scandal had reached the upper offices. Clarissa Hansley, the hotel's owner and director, summoned Grayson and Miles into her office. Rose and Lily were brought too, though Rose looked like she wished the ground would open beneath her. Clarissa sat behind a massive mahogany desk, her expression carved from stone. "Mr. Grayson," she said, her voice low and controlled, "you embarrassed this hotel in front of our guests. A child, an innocent, showed more dignity than you did. You are finished here." Grayson's lips parted, but no words came. His polished shoes clicked once against the floor as he stood, then carried him out of the room. He didn't look at Lily. When the door shut, silence returned, softer this time. Clarissa turned her attention to Miles. "And you," she said. "You seem to have something in mind." Miles adjusted his glasses and leaned forward, his gaze settling on Lily. Not with pity, not with amusement, but with conviction. "I've been looking for talent my entire life," he said. "I've produced symphonies, nurtured prodigies, heard 1,000 voices. But what I heard tonight—" He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. That was truth. And truth cannot be taught. It can only be carried. Rose clutched Lily's hand, her knuckles white. "She's just a child," she whispered. We don't have money. We can't." "You won't need money," Miles interrupted gently. "I can arrange everything. A scholarship to a private music academy in New York. Housing for you both. Support. A chance for her to become what she was born to be." Rose shook her head, overwhelmed. "It's too much. We don't belong in places like that." But Lily, still quiet from the storm of applause, lifted her chin. Her voice was soft, but steady. "Dad wanted me to play," she said. "That's all I have left." The room fell silent. Clarissa leaned back in her chair. Miles's eyes softened, and Rose pressed her hand to her mouth. The offer was no longer a question. It was a beginning. Seattle was behind them. The weeks that followed moved like a blur, packing what little they owned, saying quiet goodbyes, signing papers Rose barely understood, but trusted because Miles Barrington was there to explain. For the first time in her life, Rose wasn't scrubbing someone else's floor. She was preparing to follow her daughter into a future neither of them had dared to imagine. New York was louder, taller, heavier than anything Lily had ever known. The streets never seemed to sleep, and the sky was hidden behind towers of glass and stone. Yet somewhere in that endless maze of sound and light, a small hall waited. Not the great Carnegie, not yet, but a place where her name could appear, bold and alone, on a poster taped to the door. Lily, piano recital. Rose held her hand as they walked inside. "Are you nervous?" she whispered. Lily shook her head, though her stomach fluttered. She wasn't afraid of the piano. She was afraid of the silence before the first note. The hall filled with strangers, students, teachers, a few curious locals who had heard whispers about the barefoot girl from Seattle. Miles sat near the front, calm as ever, his glasses catching the stage light. Rose found a seat at the back, her hands twisting in her lap. Behind the curtain, Lily smoothed her simple white dress. It wasn't silk or satin, nothing fancy, just something clean, chosen with care. Her bare feet touched the wooden stage floor, grounding her. For a moment she thought of the chandelier in the hotel lobby, the polished piano, the crowd that hadn't expected anything from her. She smiled. They hadn't expected her then, and they wouldn't expect her now. The curtain lifted. The applause that greeted her was polite, uncertain, just curiosity. A small figure, 11 years old, walking to the piano with a quiet determination. She bowed, not too deep, then sat. The silence came, the kind she feared. Heavy, expectant, pressing down on her small shoulders. Dozens of eyes waited, ready to measure, to judge. Lily placed her hands on the keys. The first note rang out, soft and trembling, then another and another, until the sound shaped itself into something both fragile and strong. She didn't play Mozart. She didn't play Chopin. She played Lily. Simple, raw, honest. The music carried her father's memory, her mother's struggle, the humiliation of Grayson's voice, the glory of defying it. Each note was a piece of her truth, laid bare for strangers to hear. And the hall listened. Phones didn't rise this time. No one whispered. The world outside New York's walls roared and clattered, but inside this small room, everything stilled. When the last note faded, Lily let her hands fall into her lap. For a heartbeat, there was silence. The kind that wasn't empty, but full. Then applause. Not thunderous, not wild, but steady, heartfelt. The kind that grows slowly, like a fire catching, until it filled the room. From the corner of her eye, Lily noticed a figure standing near the back. Tall, stiff, hands clasped behind him. Mr. Grayson. He didn't clap, he didn't smile, he just stood, listening. And somehow, that meant more than the applause. The applause washed over her like a tide. But Lily didn't bow right away. She stayed seated, her fingers still resting on the cool ivory, her chest rising and falling with the weight of what she'd just given away. For a moment, she wasn't in New York. She was back in Seattle, staring at the chandelier, hearing Grayson's voice say she wasn't the kind of person allowed near a piano. She thought of her mother's weary hands scrubbing floors, of her father's voice telling her to play, always to play. And then she stood. This time her bow wasn't shy. It was steady, confident. A girl claiming her place beneath the lights. The applause grew louder, breaking the spell of silence. Rose pressed her hands to her face, tears slipping through her fingers. Miles Barrington remained seated for a moment longer, then rose, his presence alone quieting the room. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His words carried like a verdict. "Today," he said, his voice warm but firm, "we didn't hear perfection. We heard something rarer. We heard the truth, and that is why the world will hear it." The audience erupted, clapping harder, standing now. Lily bowed once more, her cheeks flushed, her heart steady. She had been invisible once, the girl in bare feet. Now her name was spoken, her music heard. At the back of the hall, Grayson didn't move. His hands stayed clasped, his face unreadable. No applause came from him. And yet, his stillness was different now. Not contempt, not arrogance, but something closer to surrender. As if even he knew the fight was over, and the child he once dismissed had already won. Lily stepped off the stage, her bare feet whispering against the wood. Rose gathered her in her arms, holding her tight, as if afraid she might vanish. Miles placed a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. "This," he said softly, "is only the beginning." And for the first time, Lily believed it.